And we are live.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, Podfeet. Boy, I'm
This
a little
plate's
washed
too
out
tall.
here.
You're washed out?
A little bit.
Poor Steve. Yes, I'm enjoying a fine, plain Ralph's brand seltzer. Kroger. I'm hitting it hard tonight. 5-second delay. Ooh, that's pretty good.
You might want to go slow on that. Don't want too many bubbles. All right, I'm going to take you off Discord. Now I'm just hearing your Mimo.
All right, I'm muting you in Discord as well. Talk to me again.
Test, 1, 2, 3. This is
And I can't hear you, Steve.
Really? Test?
So I do need to turn that other source back on.
Hold on. Let me make sure I'm... Let me... Hold on. Let me be quiet for a second. Test, test, test. Yeah, my voice is...
Talk to me now.
How about now? Do you hear me?
I do. So was that...
I don't hear the echo, the feedback either.
You don't. So that was a red herring then. That makes more sense that I should be able to see that. And it is interesting that he said you disappeared on that in the screenshot I sent.
Yeah, that is
so very interesting.
Okay.
Bubbles make me gurgly. That's why I have to drink in a glass, Jill. I can't drink out of the can.
You can, but you just get bubbles.
All right. I should play the intro.
Well, wait. I don't think we've even done the sidebar, have we? Have we done the roll call?
Sidebar? What do you mean? Oh, you mean roll call?
Roll call? Yeah,
we have not done roll call because Alan's not here. I don't know how to do roll call without Alan. Somebody's got to come through for me.
This is normally where Jason would jump in with a nice GIF.
Yeah, where's Jason? Is he here?
He is.
I don't know. How can I don't know if Jason's here because I can't do roll call. I mean, there's just this is an infinite loop problem we got going on.
So Mike Allen said he wouldn't be able to make it. He had a pre-existing obligation. So he does have a hall pass.
Yes, he
where
does.
Is Wingman? I don't think. Kevin said he wouldn't be here as well. He's on vacation.
Yeah, because that's right. So I can make fun of Steve again, right?
So gosh,
all right.
We have no support. Now that doesn't.
Wait a minute. Is that Jeff going to say roll call? That's. I guess we're going to have to take it. That's the best you can do. All right. Shoot, I can't remember Batfink's name. We've got Batfink and Jason and Mike and Jill and Ed and John and Rick and Sandy and Steve. And let's see, is Rose in the sidebar where she belongs? I see her there.
Is Batfink.
Seamus. We'll get that eventually. I don't know when. All right. We have a recording from Kaylee today.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to play.
Looking forward to that.
Let me make sure you guys can hear playback here.
Oh, Al, your Hindenburg page is all messed up.
What does all messed up mean?
I'm seeing, it looks like, wow.
I'll fix it. It got messed up when Mimo Live barfed. All right, let's see. That's really annoying that it reset itself like that. Do it like that. And that's probably better.
That's a little better.
What do you mean a little better? It's not perfect?
Close enough for government work. The clock is
What's
a little
missing?
bit clipped. The clock is clipped, but that's okay. I can still read.
Really? So that doesn't make any sense. I had captured the whole thing. Let me show capture area.
It's a little bit clipped on the left.
Yeah, it can't be.
All right.
That's awesome.
I'm joking.
Let's see, I can't see it. I don't have an iPad set up in here today. So anyway, all right. Hide capture area. Okay, that was handy. The dock just moved over to that window, so now it's coming up Mimo Live. All right, this is great. Everything's working great. My voice is on its way out, so I've been losing my voice every single night around this time, so I'm going to have to speak quickly. Let's see if you can hear playback here first. All right, playback. Yep. All right, Rose confirms.
Rose?
We are good to go. I am going to start right up here. Okay. Here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, May 22nd, 2022, and this is show number 889. And I know know it's weird to stop partway through, but I'm just going to...
That sounds like an intro I've heard before.
Let's see. I think I was keeping this over here now, yeah. Oh, no, I need to do this back. All right. Time for a chapter mark. Oh, we're not even on the live button yet. Save and add chapter marks.
Thank you,
Job.
Rick.
Copy link. That didn't work at all. All right, let's try to see if we can do it again. Nope, we have to wait for it. I don't know how long the wait time is. Maybe we should have a bell that plays when it's done waiting. I don't know, it gave me two clicks, and it shouldn't have. Let's see if I try this again. I'm in a loop. I'm going to do this one by hand. Oh, you know what? I'm an idiot. I forgot to create the chapter mark first. That's why it's not working. Oh, it gave me a double click. No, it just erased the chapter mark. All right, let's try this again. This show's going to be great. Okay. Got one click. That's good. Copy link. Little distorted click, and it just deleted the link.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, what did we find with that, Mike? It's always operator trouble. That might be this wrong chapter mark I have here. Let's try it one more time. Okay. I got one click. Got the second click. Come on.
What does it say? No chapters.
No chapters defined. Use Command-Shift-Enter to add chapter markers. Well, I don't know why it's doing that, but it's deleting the chapter mark. Let's see. I'm going to do it by hand. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm sure it's my fault, but I don't know what it is. If a chapter mark is selected in Hindi, then it converts it to a regular mark. I may have accidentally created a regular mark to start with, so that could be it. All right. Back to recording. Muting Steve. Our guest this week on Chit Chat Across the Pond is John Siracusa of the Accidental Tech podcast, Reconcilable Differences, and Robot or Not. He's also the developer of two interesting Mac apps, Front and Center and Switchglass. You can find his blog over at hypercritical.co, and you can find him on Twitter at Siracusa. Now, I've been a fan of John's for a very long time, but I never knew anything about his background, so I asked him to start at the beginning and explain where he came from. It's a very funny answer to that. Anyway, next I ask him some questions about screen brightness and arrangement of windows that I've heard him talking about on his shows, and I've always wanted to investigate his ideas about this further. Then we got into a super meaty discussion where he explains display technology from LCD to OLED to QD-OLED, also known as quantum dot OLED. Now, I've learned about these through Know a Little More on Tom Merritt's fantastic show, but I still wanted to have the conversation with somebody where I could get even deeper, and John does a great job of breaking it down and explaining it to us how this all works, and he does a little hand-waving on the whole quantum dot thing, but he gets as meaty as we can. Anyway, John was as delightful as I had hoped, he was as knowledgeable as I'd expected, and I had a fantastic time with him. So I hope you'll go into your podcatcher of choice and look for Chit Chat Across the Pond Light, and look for the episode number 729 with John Siracusa. Oh, you finally subscribed to ATP because of it? Good. It is. I love the show. I just really get a kick out of it. I'm not real fond of one of the hosts, but overall, I like the discussion. And John is. I've always said, John, if I could pick to meet one of them, it was going to be John. So I got to meet him. I finally, when I was on Clockwise, that's how I got to meet him. All right, let's see if I can, excuse me, chapter mark here. All right, copy link. Nope, it's just beeping at me when I try to copy now.
I don't see the chapter mark.
You're right. Jeez, did I forget the chapter mark again? All right, let's try it again. Okay, here we go. Oh, great.
What? It erased the previous one. It's like it's backing up one. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But the chapter is still there. At least I see a marker.
Yeah, it's like, so he says it creates it converts a chapter if you put the wrong kind in. So Command Enter puts the wrong kind in, like that, marker 4. But if I delete that and I hit Command Shift Enter, that's the right kind. So that should work. Copy link. Nope. What is going on?
Ooh, it's still changing.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm undoing the change it did.
Oh, you're doing that manually. Okay.
Well, I'm undoing it. It erased the second chapter and put all the text into the new one, or into the old one. So I just did a backup there, and I don't know. I'm gonna have to do them by hand today. It's odd that it usually ends up being my fault. So I'm not blaming Mike here because this thing just works, but I don't know why. Some days it does. The last time it didn't work, it was because you weren't here. Frank, nice to see you. Good morning in Japan.
Frank.
All right. I am unfortunately going to have to talk for a long time here. All right, here we go. Nope. Now here we go. Back in March, I told you the story of how I wrote a shortcut with a shell script to mount a share on my Synology network attached storage, also known as my NAS. I said that I had made fire because I was so proud of myself. I taught myself to write shell scripts, and I taught myself how to use shortcuts, if in a very rudimentary way. The problem I was solving with this script/shortcut solution was that Hazel would become a real nag. You know what? Too much stumbling. Starting over. Back in March, I told you the story of how I wrote a shortcut with a shell script to mount a share on my Synology network attached storage. That's also called a NAS. I said that I had made fire because I was so proud of myself. I taught myself to write shell scripts, and I taught myself how to use shortcuts, if in a rudimentary way. The problem I was solving with this script/shortcut solution was that Hazel would become a real nag when I was off my network and it wanted to move files as I had directed it to. If it can't find the servers to move the files to, what else can it do but give me constant notifications that the server isn't there? As happy and proud as I was to have solved this problem, I knew that embedding a script into a shortcut was a bit of a kludge. I knew that a shell script could do all of the work and it didn't need the fancy pants shortcut helping it. Now, I have learned through this exercise that shortcuts, at least on the Mac, are fragile. They seem to break without provocation. I've actually been able to create shortcuts that immediately crash the entire Shortcuts app. My shortcut to mount my NAS share is no exception to this fragility problem. It worked flawlessly when I wrote the original article, but within a week or so, Hazel started complaining about it. Now, it was an odd kind of a failure, because when Hazel would run, it would give me a notification that said, "Shortcut failed, could run shortcut, : That's super helpful. I contacted the awesome developer of Hazel, Paul Kim, and he went back and forth with me quite a few times reviewing my script and shortcut and the Hazel logs. After numerous exchanges, we came to the conclusion that Mac shortcuts are not ready for prime time. This exchange with Mr. Noodle himself was back in March, and for the past 2 months I've been watching my Hazel scripts fail, dismissing the error messages, and then manually moving my files to my NAS as they go stale on my internal drive. I finally found myself with some uncommitted time and decided to buckle down and write the rest of the shell script and eliminate shortcuts from Hazel. Oh, I didn't even notice could run shortcut. That might be Paul Kim's mistake. I'm not sure we can blame Apple on that. I should ask him. Sometimes I get a whole long stream of them. Sorry, guys, my throat is starting to close up.
Noodle?
Paul Kim, his company is called NoodleSoft.
Oh.
Okay. So on Twitter, he's Mr. Noodle.
Got it.
All right. I got to get ahead of this. Writing the script to do this reminded me of my father's complaint about how he'd go into his... Writing the script to do this reminded me of my father's complaint about when he would go to build something in his shop. He would describe going into the shop and realizing his workbench was covered with tools and sawdust and drawings. As he was putting the tools away to start the new project, he'd notice that maybe the leg of the workbench was wobbling. He'd find some wood to make a shim and reach for his circular saw, only to notice that the blade had to be replaced. He'd go to his stash of blades and trip over something that had fallen. Anyway, this process would go on for hours, and he would never be able to get started building the thing he went into the shop to create. Starting to work on my script was exactly like that. Here's what I did on day one. First, I wanted to modify the existing script, but since it was technically working for the part it was supposed to do, I wanted to have a history of my changes. I pretty much needed a version control system to keep that history, and the obvious choice to do this is to use Git. In Programming by Stealth, we've learned how to use Git over a series of lessons, so I'm super comfortable with it. To use a version control system, you have to have a local repo or repository, and then you have a remote repo. You make changes locally, and then you push those changes with messages to yourself about what you did. You push those to the remote. So normally we use a web-based repo called Github, but I thought, you know what, this would be a fun opportunity to try using my Synology for the remote repo. Setting up Git on my Synology required command line access. I could have easily used the built-in terminal app to use this, but Bart had just told us about a nifty new command line app called Warp, so I downloaded and installed Warp and decided to use that. But I didn't know how to use Warp, so I had to find and read the documentation on Warp. Now, to connect to the Synology, I needed to turn on SSH, and that allows you to create a secure shell into that server. I searched the web, and I figured out how to turn it on the Synology. Now, I remembered that Bart had taught us how to enable a remote that's not on GitHub, but I didn't remember how to do it. So I went back and I read PBS 113 on how to enable a remote for Git. I successfully connected using SSH with Warp to enable a Git bare repo on my Synology. All right, I'm getting somewhere. Now in Git, I tried to access the remote on the Synology, but something was wrong with my syntax. Since this process at this point was getting kind of complicated, I decided I better record everything I'm doing in case I ever want to do this again. I generally document purely text-based instructions for myself using the app Keepit from Reinvented Software, so I popped that open. I discovered that Keepit had a huge update to version 2 that Steve Harris never told me was coming. Anyway, I rely heavily on this app, so I immediately downloaded Keepit 2.0. It downloaded a free 15-day trial, but of course, I wanted to buy it sight unseen. But now I had to decide whether to buy directly from Steve Harris and give him the 30% instead of the Mac App Store. But before I could do that, I really wanted to know, did I originally buy it from the Mac App Store the first time, or did I originally buy it from him? Now, to answer that question, I opened my mind mapping software, iThoughts. That's where I've documented all of the apps I install when I do a nuke and pave, and I collect all the Mac App Store apps together. So I knew that it would be faster to look here than scrolling through my Mac App Store purchases looking for it, because the App Store doesn't have a search. Why, Apple? Well, at least your purchases don't. Anyway, I confirmed that I had bought it directly from Steve. So I bought the upgrade license to Keepit 2.0, and I shook my fist at the purchasing software MindSpring for insisting I tell it my phone number and address. You know what? This is why people like the Mac App Store. Anyway, I received the email with the license. The first thing I do when I receive a new license key for software is to enter it into 1Password. Finally, I was able to start documenting my process in Keepit. At this point, I realized I needed to figure out how to share my public encryption key with my Synology so that every time I try to push a Git change to the remote, I wouldn't have to enter my password. Well, I didn't remember how to share my public key with the server, so I looked up the Taming the Terminal lesson where Bart taught us how to do it. Using what I learned from Bart, I found and followed the Synology-specific instructions, and yet I still had to enter my password every time I tried to push my Git changes to my Synology. You will notice I have not yet written a single line of code for my new and improved script after all of this. I'd had a lot of fun along the way, but by this time, I decided I'd just go watch Star Trek for a while and try again in a few days. Anyway, I finally got SSH working later when I got a fresh start. All right. By the way, this is a story about Keychain, but I'm going to get to it. I'm not there yet. So now it was time to finally start working on the script. As a reminder, a shell script is just a way to put a bunch of terminal commands together. That means it's easy to test because you can type it into the command line in terminal or warp, and if it works, you plop what you wrote into your script. As a smidge of a review, the script in its original state determines whether my Mac and the Synology are on the same network. If they are not, then the script should do nothing at all. If they are on the same network, the script should pass it off, or today, the script passes this info off to the shortcut. The only function the shortcut was doing was to actually mount the appropriate share on my Mac so that Hazel could start copying to it. Now, the easy way to mount a share from a NAS is to, in the Finder menu, select Go Connect to Server, or you can use the command shortcut, the keyboard command shortcut, Command K. From there, you enter the connection information for the server where you want to. Okay, too many mistakes. Where is that? As a smidge of a... Yeah, that's exactly where I want to cut it. Have I missed anything exciting, Steve?
Not too much. It's been a little bit quiet.
Strange New Worlds, yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Strange New Worlds is fantastic.
It's got more of a TOS feel to it, although
yeah,
quite different.
You like it because it's episodic, right, Steve? There's not a big story arc each year?
Yeah, I mean, there's minor arcing, but not as much as some of the previous. It's more like TOS in that way.
Yeah. Michael, you did not miss Kaylee. She will be after I'm done with this bit here. All right, gonna keep going here. As a smidge of a review, the script in its original state determines whether my Mac and the Synology are on the same network. If they are not, then the script should do nothing at all. If they are on the same network, the script passes off this information to the shortcut. The only function the shortcut did was to actually mount the appropriate share on my Mac so that Hazel could start copying to it. Now, the easy way to mount a share from a NAS is to select the Finder menu, Go, Connect to Server, or use the keyboard shortcut Command K. From there, you enter the connection information for the server share you want to mount. The protocol I use is called SMB, so the connection to my share is just SMB:// the IP address / the share. Now, I was in the thick of rewatching Deep Space Nine when I got my Synology, and Odo was my favorite character, hence the name is for my Synology share is Sudodo. Anyway, it's the share for my backups. Oh, dang it. No, I got to read exactly as it was written. I got to do that one more time, because then that doesn't make any sense. Oh, wait, hang on. I can go to Hazel could start. Okay. The protocol I use. And my share is just SMB. The protocol I go from there. Come on. There we go. The protocol I use is SMB, so the connection to my share is SMB:// the IP address, which is 192.168.4.95 / Synodo-al-backup. Now, you see, I was in the thick of rewatching Deep Space Nine when I got my Synology, and Odo is my favorite character in Deep Space Nine, hence the name Synodo for my Synology. And this is the share for my backups. That's why it's called Synodo-al-backup. Now, the first time you connect in this way, you'll be prompted for your login credentials. That makes sense, right? And at that prompt, you can tell macOS to save your password in Icloud Keychain. I set this up years ago when I got my Synology, and it allows me to hit Command K, select from a saved list of server shares, hit Enter, and I'm in. But right when I wanted to write a script to do the same function from the command line, the Command K connection to my Synology added an extra step. It didn't prompt me for my login credentials, but it did pop up a window that said, "You are attempting to connect to the server 192.168.4.95. Click Connect to continue." Now, it's not a huge deal to have to click that connect button when using Command K from the GUI, but it's catastrophic to the command line script since it has no way of doing that confirmation. And more importantly, why is it asking me this now? It never did this before. Just like my dad in the shop, I couldn't start until yet another problem was fixed. I knew that the problem had to be in that pesky Icloud keychain. Now, I'm not an expert at keychain, but it's not that complicated, so I figured I could get it sorted right quick. The app where these credentials are stored is called Keychain Access, and it's in /applications/utilities. Now, you'll find an alarming number of entries in Keychain Access when you first open it, but don't let that freak you out. To find the correct entry, I searched for the IP address of my Synology, and that gave me just the ones I wanted to look at. Now, Keychain Access entries have two tabs, Attributes and Access Control. In Attributes, you'll find the name, which in this case had been entered as the IP address of that server. Kind had been pre-populated with network password. The account name was my login name to the Synology, Podfeet. You get where I know where I get that. Then where it shows the SMB connection I specified earlier, it says it's going to be SMB : my IP address / the share. Now the password is not shown, but I verified it was correct by hitting the Show Password checkbox and entering my Mac's login credentials to be allowed to see it. Okay, so far everything looked right. Now, the Access Control tab has two radio button options. Allow all Hey, Steve, if you have the post open where I actually typed out the IP address, I wrote down 4.205. It should say 4.95.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind fixing that for me.
I will change it.
Thank you.
I was wondering
read
why
it
that was
correctly.
different than the other occurrence.
Yeah, I read it correctly, though. Now, the access... Okay. Now, the Access Control tab has two radio button options. Allow all applications to access this item, or confirm before allowing access. And then within confirm, there's a sub-option here to ask for keychain password. Luckily, in my case, confirm before allowing access was selected. Not luckily. Why did you say luckily? Luckily. Confirm before allowing access was selected. Below these options is a section that says always allow access by these applications. Now, when you authorize a password to a network device and save it to Keychain, it automatically adds 3 items specifically to mount those network volumes. NetAuth sysagent, NetAuth, I'll get it right yet, NetAuth agent.app, and NetAuth. All 3 of those applications were added to the Keychain Access entry for the share on my NAS. Now, I have a Drobo as well, which was still successfully responding to my request to mount its shares and not prompting me to push the connect button. I compared every detail of the 2 entries in Keychain, and they were identical. That got me to thinking maybe the problem was on my end on my Mac, but maybe the Synology itself was responding in some weird way, and that was causing the extra prompt. So I woke up my 2016 MacBook Pro and I tried to connect to the Synology shares, and it worked perfectly without prompting me to hit that pesky connect button. I also tested from Steve's Mac Studio, and he was also able to connect to server on the Synology without the extra prompt. So I was back to the problem being on my Mac. So next I deleted all the SMB entries in Keychain to this server. I do have an SSH entry that I prefer not to delete, and I did leave that one, but I deleted the other ones and I recreated them. I repeated that step, but I did a reboot after deleting and before recreating. In both cases, it still didn't work. I tried disabling Icloud Keychain and repeated the delete recreate steps, but still no joy. Finally, in an act of desperation, I called AppleCare, where Juan searched for over 50 minutes for any reference to this problem. He was really annoying. The entire time he was researching, he didn't talk to me at all. He didn't give me any feedback. I would ask him, well, so what are you doing? And he would say, I'm still looking. I wasn't sure he wasn't just watching TikTok and listening on his headphones, but was really researching. But after 50 minutes, he was unsuccessful. He opened a ticket, and he never followed up at all. I did not like Juan very much. All right, it was time to bring out the big guns. I reinstalled macOS over the top. Now, this isn't nearly as scary as it sounds. You do need to figure out how to reboot into recovery mode for your particular Mac, but once you crack that code, Apple have a very good step-by-step support article. It walks you through how to do it. You want to do a backup first, of course, but it just replaces system files that may have gotten corrupted and then theoretically doesn't mess with your data. But like I said, run a backup first. After reinstalling the operating system, I still got the pesky prompt. Even though Keychain was set identically to my older Mac, I tried messing with the access controls. If having confirm before allow access set and allowing that netauth system stuff be allowed didn't work, maybe I should just allow all applications access to the system. Believe it or not, that made things even worse. With that setting, when I tried to connect to my Synology, it asked for my Keychain password, which is the inverse of what I would expect. Well, every few days, I went back to the Googles trying to find some way of phrasing my search that would avoid the password prompt problem and just have the connect button problem, because a lot of people have the password prompt problem, and then the explanation is not what I need. So I just need that connect button problem. Finally, after more than a week, I struck gold, or I don't know, at least iron. I found an archived Apple support article back from the macOS Sierra days entitled, "If You're Asked to Click Connect Before Reconnecting to a Server." The premise of the article is, quote, "When connecting to a server that requires a username and password, macOS Sierra 10.12 or later asks you to click connect, even when the name and password have been saved in your keychain. This helps you avoid transmitting login credentials to a server you didn't intend to connect to." Well, it goes on to explain how to disable the security feature so that you can connect without providing additional information. The fix is via a terminal command. The command changes a preference file called com.apple.com.apple.network authorization. I doubt that's right. That's a typo. Shoot.
That looks
Can I have you fix this one too, Steve? It should be as it looks in the quote below, in the code below, com.apple.network authorization.
I got it.
And while you're at it, can I give you a second one and you do it too?
Mm-hmm.
If user is equal to pod feet, then annoy her. Thank you. Do you see where I say macOS Sierra days entitled? There's a comma and then it immediately says, if you're asked to connect, there should be a space there.
Yes, I see that too.
Okay. The fix is, give me an excuse to have some water. All right. The fix is, via a terminal command that looks kind of scary, but it's pretty easy. The command changes a preference file called com.apple.network authorization, and it changes one line to allow all unknown servers. In macOS, if you're willing to go under the hood, you can change the default preferences by issuing what's called a default write command. Now, you have to be administrator to do this, so you add the superuser do command at the front, which is sudo. So the command comes out sudo defaults write. So you're going to change a default by writing to it, and you're using superuser do. Anything you try to change with this command will then prompt you for your admin password. With these defaults in preference files, you tell it to set a Boolean to yes or no. Boolean literally means yes or no or true or false. So we're going to tell it to do the defaults right, and we're going to use a Boolean to tell it yes or no. So putting this all together, we get sudo defaults right, that name of that preference file. Then it has allow unknown servers -bool yes. That's a lot to read, but I've got it in the show notes, of course. If you ever want to undo a change like this, it's pretty easy. You issue the same command, but instead of -bool yes, you send -bool no. Now, I told you that sounds very scary, but knowing you can undo changes means it's pretty safe to do. One of the ones I used to set all the time was to turn off the automatic drop shadows macOS puts on all screenshots, and that's another defaults right. So the good news is that changing this preference to allow all unknown servers successfully removed the need for me to hit that annoying connect button when connecting to my Synology. While joyous, I ran it by Bart to make sure this wasn't some big dumb security hole I was opening, and he said it wasn't a problem, and that in fact, he vaguely remembered doing it himself a few years ago. If you've changed a preference with a defaults write, you can check the status by issuing a defaults read command against the same preference. I woke up my slumbering 2016 MacBook Pro and I asked it, did I ever change that network authorization preference? But I had not. So I will still continue to lie awake at night trying to figure out why I needed to do this in the first place, but at least I'm back in business. I would also like to point out that, like my dad in his shop, I still have not gotten started on my bash script.
I think Seamus summed it up rather nicely. Sounds like a load of bull to me. Nice.
I like it. All right. So now we're going to go back to here and let's see if it's in the mood to, let's see. It's time for Kaylee. It worked.
It worked.
See?
Amazing.
I don't know. All right, I'm going to do a little intro, and then I'm going to thank you, Rick, for the reminder. And I'm going to time to change the saw blade. Do you like that analogy, Ed? You know what I'm talking about, right? All right, I'm going to do a little thing up front here. Longtime listeners will remember frequent contributor to the show, Kaylee Dio. She even had her own podcast. I loved having her on Chit Chat Across the Pond and getting recordings from her and just chatting with her in general. When things got bad in the past couple of years, she went off the grid. I missed her terribly, and I worried about her even more when I didn't hear from her for a full 2 years. I'm delighted to tell you that she has resurfaced with this somewhat wistful look back on the iPod and what it meant to her. Okay, get your Kleenexes, kids. I thought about writing this in the show notes or reading this to the entire audience, but it's really more for you guys. If anything ever happens to you, will you make sure that somebody in your family or some of your friends, somebody knows to tell me that you're okay or not okay? Because it was really hard for the last 2 years not knowing where she was. I worried about her all the time. I worried about her the day before she sent me this recording. So if you would you guys put it in your will or something, if anything ever happens to me, because, a lot of you, I feel a close connection to, and I don't know your family necessarily. I don't know. I mean, let's take like Stephen Getz. Talk to him all the time. If he disappeared, I don't know. I know his wife's name, but I don't know how to contact her. So just write it down somewhere that says, tell Ellison if something happens to me. So yeah. And Sandy, you're another good example. I know your husband's name, but I don't know how to find you. If you disappeared, actually, I could probably drive out and find your house. But all right. Add that to your ICE document instructions. Good. Yeah. Jill, another perfect example. All you guys. I know how to find Mr. Ed, and that's about it. All right. Enough soppy stuff. Let's listen to Kaylee. Pod and what it meant to her.
Hi. Hey, how's it going? You've been doing okay the past couple years? Yeah, me neither. Modern life. Am I right? I'm definitely still a geek, but the further we go into the future, the more I find myself longing for the past. Well, at least parts of it. But more than anything, I miss those days of bright, shining optimism. The promise in the past of a better future yet to come. The end of the iPod era brought back a flood of memories. While I grew up using Apple IIe and Macintosh computers at school and friends' houses, my family couldn't really afford to buy a Mac for ourselves. Instead, I ended up building my own Windows computers over the years from spare or budget parts I was able to salvage. I made do with what I was given. I made the best of the situation. But I always longed for what I thought I couldn't have. That kind of sums up my childhood, I guess. My first MP3 player was called the MP Trip. Released in May 2000 and priced at around $100. It was a typical CD player, offering 50-second anti-skip protection, as well as random, shuffle, and repeat playback modes. But there was one more feature. It could play MP3 files burned onto CDRs. That's right, up to 170 MP3 formatted music files to be exact. This meant that I could keep my CDs on the shelf and just carry around a couple burned discs with hundreds of songs. It was so cool. It was also, admittedly, quite clunky. The screen was teeny tiny, making it difficult to find a particular song. It definitely worked best just letting it play straight through, and it devoured batteries. But it was mine. And I still think about it from time to time when I pop on one of those classic J-pop albums of the era that I listened to on repeat until the AA batteries died. Sadly, that MP3 player was lost in the great cat pee incident of the mid-aughts. I came home one day to find nearly everything in my room had been placed on the curb in rubbish bags. Supposedly, the cat had peed on it all. Everything. All of my prized possessions carefully hidden away in boxes, out of sight and under the bed. All the things I hadn't been given, but had managed to acquire on my own, despite what my mom or the world might think. I wanted to cry myself to sleep that night, like I had so many nights, listening to my MP trip. But it was gone. I felt betrayed, ashamed, but I forged on. And when I finally had money of my own, I was able to buy a replacement for myself, a fourth generation iPod. The iPod was just cool. I remember the box it came in. It was shaped like a cube and incredibly colorful. The four main sides of the box were blue, yellow, pink, and green. I always made sure that the pink side of the box was facing front on the shelf in my room. I remember walking to university with it, listening to the score of Dawson's Creek as I waited for the train to go by. I remember loading it up with the latest Utada Hikaru CD that the exchange students had recommended. I remember cranking up the volume and grinning ear to ear to the Buffy musical soundtrack after my friend decided my new name should be Kaylee. I remember dancing with Ikimonogakari and AKB48 down Boylston Street on the way to Japanese meetup, smiling up at the Apple Store where I had purchased my second Mac, a MacBook Pro. I remember long train rides with Sakamoto Maya and James Taylor, emotional evenings with Zone, Yui, and Michelle Branch, trick-or-treating with Sailor Moon, all-night events with Momoito Clover Zed, and 2 a.m. bike rides with One AirPod and Carly Rae Jepsen. Because somewhere along the way, the iPod became an iPod Touch, and the iPod Touch became an iPhone. I even went wireless after my headphones got tangled around a corner and took out the screen. My very first trip to the Shinsaibashi Table of Sadness. I still miss the headphone jack. I always will, even if I love my AirPods Pro and even if a USB-C iPhone would give me just one dongle instead of two. That's what's amazing about people. There's such a wide variety of us out there. Some prefer music on a big stereo system, and some are happy with their phone speaker. Some want FLAC files, while others like vinyl or mini disc. And some would simply prefer to listen to a podcast, thank you very much. And that's okay. But I worry about a world that starts telling people like me that the way we survive our lives is wrong. The world's hard enough to survive as it is, on top of being told to stay in our little box. But the way we're trying to weather the storm of life is making others feel scared or uncomfortable when we just want to do our business and move on. For me at least, when the world gets harsh, as it has been so often in the past few years, I like to tune everything out and listen to the songs I've collected along the way. Sometimes the clouds part and the day is saved. And sometimes the tears just fall on the pillow in complete darkness. But those songs are more than just files to me. Unlike the vast ocean that is music streaming, they're specific memories of the ports I've visited along the way. They're poetry in words, helping to make sense of today and steer the ship towards a better tomorrow. And while that 4th gen iPod is gone, I kept an iPod Classic around. I'm recording on it right now, in fact. Maybe it's the feel of the white earpods cable on my cheeks. Maybe it's the warmth of that Wolfson DAC. Maybe it's just nostalgia. But there's something magical to me about that special box, size of a deck of playing cards, that holds 18,000 hand-selected songs. My battle songs. The songs of my life.
Wow.
Wow.
That,
Right?
yeah.
Okay,
That
somebody
came
help me
from the
figure out
heart.
how I make a transition into
That was almost
into
poetic, that blog.
yeah.
And in
I
fact,
was thinking that too.
there were a couple lines up front where she listed four short sentences together, all one right after the other, like it's a mini poem within this blog post, which kind of
Yeah.
summarizes the tone.
So all I have to do is figure out how to transition into that from that into pledge break.
Oh, Allison, maybe move the pledge break somewhere else.
No, this is the only place it can go. I, by the way,
Oh,
send
boy.
cash. So anyway. No, for some, no, I'm going to say a little bit here.
Well, certainly thank Kaylee for that input. That's I'm sure you would. But.
Yeah. All right.
The songs of my life.
Kaylee, that was a beautiful piece, and it was, as Steve just said to the live audience, it was really almost like poetry. And I really want to thank you for sharing your feelings with us, and I'm so happy to know that you're somewhat okay. At least you're still there. But it's also really interesting to me that technology does get interwoven into our emotions in this way. Well, I'm delighted to tell you that Michael DeStefano, shoot. I practiced this. How do you say DESTEFN? I'll just say DeStefano. Maybe that's it.
That sounds right.
DeStefano. Let's see. Oh, I got to do a chapter mark for that. It's broken again. Nope, because you didn't put in a chapter mark. That's what's wrong. Okay, try it again. Now it's out of phase. Dagnabbit. Too lazy. I just did it. Now I just erased it. I don't like that. Okay. Come on. Do it by hand. Don't know what's going on. Okay, go copy link. Copy link. Copy link. Well, I am delighted to tell you that Michael DeStefano Jr. and Dex are both our heroes of this week. They know that everything good starts with podfeed.com, so they both went to podfeed.com/Patreon and pledged to support the NosillaCast and all of the fine shows we do here at the Podfeed Podcast. Their contributions will help keep the microphones live, the servers humming, and all of the tools efficient for me to continue the shows. Thank you so much, Michael and Dex. You rock. And I will fix that typo.
Kevin's here.
Yeah, we've been chatting to him for a while.
Oh, I missed it.
That's pretty funny. Okay, where's the... There it is. Muck. Not muck much. There you go. All right. Next, it's going to be my buddy Ron. All right.
Our buddy Ron.
Our buddy Ron. Okay. So it's hitting a doot. It's making a double tap almost. I'm gonna give it a second because it went back and messed with it a little later. Nope, it's not gonna do it. The do run. Copy like, fine. All right. See you, Ed. That was a good part anyway. Why does it say Ron Birch's? Uh-oh. Oh, no, there's just an S sitting
Want me to
out there
fix
for
that?
no reason. No, I don't. I don't think it's in the real title. I think it's just in something I typoed. All right, so now I will get to Ron. My voice is going. Okay, I've got 14 versions of it. How about the one that says edited? And
I do see a heading problem with the post. Just
really,
the
does it have an S at the end?
No, but the My Requirements section has two hash marks in front of it, but it's not seeing it as a heading. Not sure why.
Nuts. Why does this... didn't save it as a stereo file. Well, this is going to be what it's going to be. All right. You rock. Well, back by popular demand, my buddy Ron is here on the show. You may remember him from his famous review of the Aura Ring. How you doing tonight, Ron?
Doing great, thanks.
All right, he's got his glass of wine. That transition was a little long. Michael Index, you rock. Well, back by... Get rid of just a little bit. Please don't delete the... Damn. Every once in a while, I hit the wrong keystroke on this app, and I get to the wrong spot. Oh, there it is. Okay. What I meant was Command X. What I really don't want it to do is delete that chapter mark, and it did. So I got to go in here and figure out how to move this, and then cut it, and then put it back. How about right there? You rock. Well, back by popular demand, my buddy Ron is here on the show. You may remember him from his famous review of the Aura Ring. How you doing tonight, Ron?
Doing great, thanks.
All right, he's got his glass of wine. I got my gin and tonic. So we thought, what fun would it be to talk about docking stations, right?
Absolutely.
Ron is our kind of people. He loves this kind of stuff. So you bought an... Okay. We are not going to listen to that. We're going to call it here.
About this docking station.
Okay. Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me anytime you like at allison@podfeed.com? If you have a question or a suggestion, just send it on over. You can follow me on Twitter @podfeed. If you want to join in the fun of the conversation, you can join our Slack community because everything good starts with podfeed.com. You know it's at podfeed.com/Slack. In there, you can talk to me and all of the other lovely NosillaCastaways. You can support the show at podfeed.com/Patreon. What were their names? Gone already. It was Dex and Michael. You can... Jeez, I forgot it already. Mike? Is that what I said? Michael. You can support the show like Michael and Dex by going to podfeed.com/Patreon or with the one-time donation at podfeed.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeed.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. There we go.
All right.
I made it.
You
I
did.
didn't have
How's
to
your
talk
voice
too
doing?
much. It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
You're not coming down with something, are you?
No, it's just never coming back. Just every year at this time of year. Has anybody been putting it on their calendar when Allison loses her voice?
Could it be
I want to
like,
know if it's the same day.
allergies or something?
I don't know. Maybe. It says I have new mentions. Who's talking to me? Let's see. Let me hit play on this. Listening and stay subscribed. You can find
by the
out
way,
you recorded. What?
Speaking of Star Trek, people should know, if you haven't heard, there is a new director's edition of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and it is good. I mean, the content
It's
is
the same
virtually
movie.
It's the same movie, but it's a remastered version, and both the sound and the video is great. They went back to original negative material to remaster this, and well done.
A lot of
It's also-
triangle, right?
what?
A lot of triangle.
Yes, the sound is very crisp. So it's out in movie theaters for a limited release, and it's also streaming on Paramount Plus. And later this year, I think September, they're going to release Blu-ray.
Ooh, nice.
H4, and it's 4K, by the way. 4K. I don't know if it's HDR, but it's 4K.
Yeah. It is very odd to see it looking so good.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, I have 5 chapter marks.
Let me count.
How many would you like?
I would like to see 1,
Even though Kevin forgot to
2,
tell me to count.
3, 4, 5. Yes, 5 is a good number.
No, you don't get to do it after I say it. That does not count, Kevin.
No, it was just a delay. He typed that in earlier. Discord just took a while to process his entry.
Yep, sure. All right, I just quit Discord or Hindenburg, which is why it disappeared from view because I'm done.
Oh, this
I'm
is
calling
good. I
it.
like this. This is a good shot right here. Looking up
You like that view?
palm tree.
All right, everybody. It was lovely to see you. Let me take my little ducky out and say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, Rose. Mwah. Let's call it, Steve.
All right. Good night. Have a good week, everybody.